My maid of honor slept with my fiancé and planned my wedding to steal my life, but I destroyed her. Picture this. You're 3 weeks away from your dream wedding, you've spent 18 months planning every detail, and you've just discovered that your maid of honor and best friend since childhood has been secretly sleeping with your fiancé for 6 months while helping you plan the wedding. She intended to steal for herself. If that sounds like the kind of betrayal that would make you question everything you thought you knew about trust and friendship, then buckle up, because what I discovered about their plan and what I did to destroy them both will leave you absolutely speechless. But before we dive into this nightmare, if you have ever been betrayed by someone you considered your best friend, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story will take you through the most calculated revenge plot involving a wedding that you have ever heard. Let me start from the beginning, because the level of planning and manipulation that went into this betrayal is something you need to understand to believe. My name is Jessica, and I'm 26 years old. I work as a graphic designer at a marketing agency in Chicago, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had the perfect life lined up. A successful career, a beautiful apartment, an amazing fiancé named Ryan, and a best friend named Melissa who had been by my side through everything since we were 12 years old. Ryan and I had been together for 3 years and engaged for 18 months. He's a software engineer, tall, handsome, ambitious, and everything I thought I wanted in a partner. He proposed to me on the rooftop of our apartment building with a custom-designed ring and a speech about how he wanted to build a life with me. Melissa had been my best friend for 14 years. We met in middle school when her family moved to our neighborhood, and we instantly clicked. She was outgoing where I was shy, confident where I was insecure, and always knew exactly what to say to make me feel better about myself. When Ryan proposed, Melissa was the first person I called. She screamed with excitement, demanded to see the ring immediately, and insisted on helping me plan every detail of what she called the wedding of the century. For the next 18 months, Melissa threw herself into wedding planning with an enthusiasm that amazed me. She researched venues, interviewed photographers, tasted cakes, and spent countless hours on Pinterest creating mood boards and inspiration albums. "I want your wedding to be absolutely perfect," she would say. "You deserve nothing less than a fairy tale." I was grateful for her help because wedding planning felt overwhelming, and I was busy with a promotion at work that required long hours and frequent travel. Melissa handled most of the vendor communications, scheduled appointments, and even came with me to dress fittings when my schedule was packed. Ryan seemed amused by Melissa's dedication to our wedding. "She's more excited about this than you are," he would joke when Melissa would text me 17 times a day with updates about flower arrangements or seating charts. "She just wants everything to be perfect," I would reply. "I'm lucky to have a friend who cares this much." Looking back now, I can see all the warning signs I missed. How Melissa always found reasons to stop by our apartment when Ryan was home. How she would suggest that Ryan accompany us to vendor meetings, since it's his wedding too. How she somehow always ended up sitting next to him at group dinners and seemed to laugh a little too hard at his jokes. But I trusted them both completely. Melissa was my best friend, and Ryan was going to be my husband. The idea that they might betray me never even occurred to me. The wedding was planned for June 15th at a beautiful vineyard outside Chicago. We had booked the venue, hired a photographer, chosen a caterer, and sent invitations to 120 guests. The dress was altered, the flowers were ordered, and everything was falling into place exactly as Melissa had envisioned. 3 weeks before the wedding, I was supposed to be in pure bliss mode, finalizing details and enjoying the excitement. Instead, I discovered the most devastating betrayal of my life. It started with a phone call that changed everything. Do you know what it feels like to have your entire world collapse in the span of a 5-minute phone conversation with a stranger who thought they were doing you a favor? Comment below and let me know, because what I learned that day made me realize that the two people I trusted most had been planning to destroy my life for months. I was at work on a Tuesday afternoon when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, so I almost let it go to voicemail. But something made me pick up. "Is this Jessica Martinez?" the woman asked. "Yes, this is Jessica." "Hi, Jessica. My name is Amanda Chen. I'm a wedding photographer, and I think there might be some confusion about your wedding." I was puzzled. Confusion? What kind of confusion? "Well, I received a booking inquiry from someone named Melissa Thompson about photographing a wedding on June 15th at Sunset Ridge Vineyard. She said she was the bride and that her fiancé's name was Ryan Walsh. But when I looked up the venue, they told me that date was already booked for a Jessica Martinez and Ryan Walsh wedding. My blood ran cold. I'm sorry, what did you say? Melissa Thompson contacted me about photographing her wedding to Ryan Walsh on June 15th. She sent me a detailed email about what she wanted, including photos of her dress and the venue setup. But the venue says that's your wedding date. I felt like I was going to throw up. Can you forward me that email? Of course, I'll send it right now. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't some kind of double booking situation. Amanda sent me the email within minutes, and reading it was like stepping into an alternate reality. Melissa had written to Amanda as if she were the bride, describing her wedding in perfect detail, including specifics about the ceremony timeline, reception layout, and even the color scheme that we had chosen together. But it got worse. Attached to the email were photos that made my hands shake. Pictures of Melissa in what looked like a bridal store, trying on wedding dresses. Photos of her and Ryan together, him kissing her cheek while she held up her left hand to show off what appeared to be an engagement ring. The photos were time-stamped from 2 months ago. I sat in my office staring at these images, trying to process what I was seeing. My best friend, wearing a wedding dress and posing with my fiancé like they were the happy couple getting married. I immediately called Ryan, but it went straight to voicemail. Then I called Melissa. "Hey, babe," she answered cheerfully. "What's up? Are you excited about the final dress fitting tomorrow?" "Melissa," I said, my voice shaking, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Of course. What's wrong? You sound upset." "Are you having an affair with Ryan?" There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When Melissa finally spoke, her voice was completely different. Cold and calculating. "Who told you that?" "So it's true." Another silence. "Jessica, it's complicated." "It's complicated?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You're sleeping with my fiancé 3 weeks before my wedding and it's complicated?" "You don't understand," Melissa said. "Ryan and I never meant for this to happen, but we fell in love and we can't help how we feel." "How long has this been going on?" 6 months, she said quietly. 6 months. While she was helping me plan my wedding, picking out flowers and tasting cakes and telling me how perfect everything was going to be, she was sleeping with my fiancé. "Jessica, I know you're hurt, but you have to understand that sometimes these things just happen. Ryan and I have a connection that neither of us expected." "You're my best friend," I said, tears streaming down my face. "How could you do this to me?" "I didn't want to hurt you, but I can't deny my feelings. And honestly, Jessica, you and Ryan weren't really right for each other anyway. You're too focused on work, and he needs someone who can give him the attention he deserves." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Not only had she betrayed me, but she was trying to justify it by telling me that she was better for Ryan than I was. "So what happens now?" I asked. "Well," Melissa said, and I could hear something like excitement creeping into her voice. "Ryan and I have been talking, and we think the best thing would be if you just stepped aside gracefully. The wedding is already planned, all the vendors are booked, and it would be such a waste to cancel everything." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. "You want to steal my wedding?" "It's not stealing if Ryan chooses to be with me instead of you." "Look, Jessica, I know this is hard, but I've put so much work into planning this wedding. I know every detail, I've built relationships with all the vendors, and honestly, I've been more invested in this than you have anyway." "More invested? It's my wedding." "Is it though? You've been working constantly, traveling for business, barely involved in any of the planning. I'm the one who's been making this wedding happen. It makes sense that I should be the one to enjoy it." I hung up without saying another word and immediately tried calling Ryan again. This time he answered. "Jess, I can explain," he said before I could even speak. "Explain what? That you've been cheating on me with my best friend for 6 months?" "It wasn't supposed to happen this way. Melissa and I were spending so much time together planning the wedding and we just connected. She gets me in a way that you don't." "So you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about problems in our relationship?" "Come on, Jess. You know we've been growing apart. You're always working, always stressed about your career. Melissa is fun and supportive and actually wants to spend time with me. We're supposed to get married in 3 weeks. I know, and I've been trying to figure out how to handle this. But Melissa made me realize that I don't want to marry someone I have to convince to prioritize our relationship. This is unbelievable. You're both unbelievable." Look, I know you're upset, but maybe this is for the best. You'll find someone who's better suited for your lifestyle, and Melissa and I can be together without all this guilt. What about the wedding? Well, everything is already planned and paid for. It seems like a waste to cancel it. Melissa suggested that maybe you could just let us have the date, and we could reimburse you for your share of the costs. I was speechless. They had not only betrayed me, but had the audacity to suggest that I should just hand over my wedding to them like it was a business transaction. You want to know what it feels like to discover that your fiancé and best friend have been planning to steal your entire life while pretending to care about you? Let me know in the comments, because what I found out next about their plan made me realize they had been scheming against me from the very beginning. After I hung up with Ryan, I sat in my office trying to process what had just happened. 6 months of lies. 6 months of Melissa looking me in the eye while she planned my wedding and slept with my fiancé. 6 months of Ryan kissing me goodbye in the morning and then probably texting her the minute I left for work. But something about the timeline bothered me. Melissa had been enthusiastic about the wedding planning from the very beginning, 18 months ago. If the affair had only been going on for 6 months, what explained her obsessive involvement in every detail? I decided to do some investigating. I started by going through my phone and computer, looking for any signs I might have missed. Text messages, emails, photos, anything that might give me a clearer picture of what had been happening behind my back. What I found was worse than I had imagined. In my email, I discovered that Melissa had been corresponding with our wedding vendors using her own email address but signing my name. She had made changes to our catering menu, upgraded our flower arrangements, and even altered our seating chart without telling me. More disturbing, I found emails between Melissa and the wedding venue coordinator discussing backup dates in case our original date didn't work out. The emails were from 8 months ago, 2 months before the affair supposedly started. Then I found something that made my blood run cold. In my laptop's browser history, I discovered that someone had been using my computer to research how to break up an engagement and signs your partner isn't ready for marriage. The searches were dated from over a year ago, just 3 months after Ryan and I had gotten engaged. Melissa had been planning this from the beginning. I realized that I needed to gather more evidence before confronting them again. If they were planning to steal my wedding and my fiancé, I wanted to know exactly how deep this conspiracy went. I called in sick to work the next day and spent the entire day playing detective. I drove to the venues where we had done wedding planning activities and talked to the vendors who had worked with us. What I learned was shocking. The florist told me that Melissa had stopped by the week before and asked to see alternative arrangements in case the bride changes her mind about the color scheme. She had also inquired about the process for transferring the order to a different bride. The caterer revealed that Melissa had called and asked about modifying the guest count and had specifically asked what would happen if there was a change in the wedding party that required updating the contract. Most disturbing of all, the venue coordinator told me that Melissa had visited the vineyard just days earlier and had asked for a tour of the bridal suite, saying she wanted to make sure everything would be perfect for the bride's preparation. But she had toured it alone without me and had asked specific questions about backup dates and cancellation policies. It was clear that Melissa had been planning to take over my wedding for months, possibly from the very beginning. The affair with Ryan might have been a means to an end, or it might have been genuine, but either way she had been systematically positioning herself to step into my life. But the most damning evidence came from an unexpected source. I remembered that Melissa had borrowed my iPad a few weeks earlier to show me some wedding inspiration photos. When I checked the iPad's photo library, I found dozens of images she had saved that I had never seen before. Pictures of herself in wedding dresses at different bridal shops, screenshots of social media posts about dream weddings and stealing the show, and most shocking of all, a series of photos that appeared to be a timeline of her plan. The photos showed Melissa's progression over the past year, pictures of her working out and changing her appearance to look more like me, screenshots of conversations with Ryan that dated back much further than 6 months, and images of our wedding venue with notes about improvements she wanted to make. But the smoking gun was a voice memo she had accidentally left on my iPad. In it, she was talking to someone on the phone, describing her plan in detail. "I've been working on this for over a year," she said in the recording. "Ryan is finally ready to leave her, and I've got all the wedding details figured out. I can just step right into her place and have the perfect wedding I've always wanted." She's been so busy with work that she doesn't even realize how much I've taken over the planning. By the time she figures it out, it'll be too late to stop me. I had everything I needed to expose them both. Do you know what it feels like to hold evidence that your best friend has been systematically planning to steal your entire life for over a year while pretending to help you? Comment below and let me know, because what I did with that evidence taught them that some betrayals come with consequences they never saw coming. With all the evidence I had gathered, I knew I had several options. I could confront them directly and demand explanations. I could cancel the wedding and walk away quietly. Or I could turn their own plan against them and make sure they got exactly what they deserved. I chose option 3. Over the next week, I carefully planned my revenge while pretending that nothing had changed. I continued to communicate with Melissa about wedding details, acting like the oblivious bride she thought I was. I texted with Ryan normally, responding to his messages with the same affection I always had. But behind the scenes, I was setting up the most epic wedding day surprise of all time. First, I contacted every single wedding vendor and explained the situation. I showed them the evidence I had gathered and told them exactly what Melissa and Ryan had been planning. Without exception, every vendor was horrified by what they heard. The photographer, Amanda Chen, was especially angry since Melissa had tried to book her services under false pretenses. "I've been in this business for 10 years, she said, "and I've never seen anything this manipulative and cruel." I worked with each vendor to create a plan. They would all play along with Melissa and Ryan's deception, but with some special modifications that would be revealed on the day of the wedding. Next, I reached out to my family and close friends, excluding Melissa, and told them what was happening. My sister was furious and wanted to confront Melissa immediately, but I convinced her to wait and let me handle it my way. "Are you sure about this?" my mom asked when I explained my plan. "Wouldn't it be easier to just cancel everything and move on?" "They think they can steal my life and face no consequences," I said. "They need to learn that actions have consequences." I also hired a private investigator to document Ryan and Melissa's relationship. I wanted time-stamped evidence of their affair that I could use if needed for legal purposes, since Ryan and I had joint financial accounts and shared assets. The PI's report was extensive and damning. Photos of them together at restaurants, hotels, and even at our apartment when I was traveling for work. Credit card records showing that Ryan had been paying for expensive dinners and gifts for Melissa. Text message logs that proved their relationship had been going on much longer than they had admitted. But the most important part of my plan involved the wedding guests themselves. I created a private social media group and invited everyone who was supposed to attend the wedding, except Melissa, Ryan, and their immediate families. In the group, I shared the evidence of their betrayal and explained what they had been planning. The response was overwhelming. Guest after guest expressed their shock and anger at what Melissa and Ryan had done. Many offered to help with my revenge plan, and others shared their own stories of similar betrayals. Most importantly, every single person agreed to attend the wedding as planned, but not for the reason Melissa and Ryan expected. 2 days before the wedding, I played my first card. Melissa was practically giddy with excitement. "This is going to be the most beautiful wedding ever. I can't wait." "I've decided you're right," I told him. "We're not compatible, and Melissa makes you happy in ways I can't. I'm going to step aside and let you two be together." "Wow, Jess, I have to say I'm impressed by how mature you're being about this." "I just want everyone to be happy," I lied, "bud. The wedding is all set up for tomorrow. You and Melissa can have your perfect day." "Are you going to be there?" he asked. "Oh, I'll definitely be there," I said. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." You want to know what it feels like to watch people who betrayed you celebrate what they think is their victory while having no idea what's about to hit them? Let me know in the comments, because what happened at that wedding became legendary in our social circle and taught everyone who witnessed it that some people's arrogance leads to their own destruction. On the morning of June 15th, I woke up early and got ready for what was about to be the most satisfying day of my life. I had my hair and makeup done professionally, and I wore a stunning black dress that made me look confident and powerful. Melissa had texted me the night before, thanking me for being so understanding and saying she hoped we could still be friends someday. I had responded with a simple, "See you tomorrow." The wedding was scheduled to begin at 4 p.m., with a cocktail hour starting at 3. I arrived at the vineyard at 2:30, just as the vendors were finishing their setup. Everything looked exactly as Melissa and I had planned it 18 months earlier. White roses and greenery everywhere, elegant table settings with gold accents, and a beautiful archway at the end of the aisle where the ceremony would take place. But there were some modifications that Melissa wouldn't notice until it was too late. I checked in with each vendor to make sure they were ready for the plan. The photographer gave me a thumbs up. The DJ nodded and patted his equipment. The caterer smiled and said, "This is going to be unforgettable." At 3:15, the guests started arriving. But instead of the happy, excited wedding guests that Melissa was expecting, the atmosphere was tense and electric. Everyone knew what was coming, and the anticipation was palpable. My family arrived first, followed by my college friends, work colleagues, and other people who had supported me through this ordeal. As each person walked in, they gave me a hug or a nod of solidarity. Ryan's family arrived looking confused. They had no idea what was really happening, since Ryan had told them that I had voluntarily stepped aside for Melissa. His mother kept looking around for me, clearly perplexed by the strange energy in the room. At 3:45, Ryan arrived wearing the tuxedo we had chosen together. He looked nervous but excited, adjusting his tie and greeting guests who stared at him with expressions ranging from disgust to amazement. Finally, at 4 p.m., a white limousine pulled up to the vineyard entrance. Melissa stepped out wearing my wedding dress, which had been altered to fit her perfectly. She looked radiant and confident, clearly believing that she was about to have the wedding of her dreams. She walked into the venue with a huge smile on her face, expecting to see a room full of guests excited to celebrate her marriage to Ryan. Instead, she found 120 people staring at her in complete silence. The silence stretched for what felt like forever. Melissa looked around confused, clearly not understanding why no one was smiling or congratulating her. That's when I stood up from my seat in the front row and began to speak. "Hello, everyone," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the silence. "Thank you all for coming to what was supposed to be my wedding to Ryan Walsh." Melissa's face went white as she realized what was happening. "As most of you know by now," I continued, "I discovered 3 weeks ago that my maid of honor and best friend Melissa has been having an affair with my fiancé Ryan for the past 6 months, while simultaneously planning to steal my wedding for herself." Ryan tried to interrupt, but I held up my hand and kept talking. "What you might not know is that this wasn't a spontaneous affair that got out of hand. Melissa has been planning to take over my life for over a year, systematically inserting herself into every aspect of my wedding planning while secretly working to break up my relationship." I pulled out my phone and played the voice memo Melissa had left on my iPad. Her voice filled the venue as she described her plan to steal my wedding and my fiancé. The guests gasped audibly as they heard Melissa's own words describing her year-long scheme. "So today," I said after the recording ended, "I thought we should all gather to witness exactly what kind of people Melissa and Ryan really are, and to celebrate the fact that I discovered their true characters before I made the mistake of legally binding myself to someone so dishonest." Melissa tried to run toward the exit, but she tripped on the train of my dress and fell dramatically in front of everyone. Several guests started laughing, and someone began to applaud. Ryan stood frozen in place, his face red with embarrassment and anger. "You're all here today because you were invited to celebrate love and commitment," I continued. "And while Ryan and Melissa have shown us the opposite of those values, I want to thank you for showing me what real love and loyalty look like by supporting me through this betrayal." I nodded to the DJ, who had been waiting for his cue. Instead of the romantic music Melissa was expecting, he began playing "Before He Cheats" by Carrie Underwood at full volume. The photographer, Amanda Chen, began taking pictures of Melissa and Ryan's shocked and humiliated faces, capturing every moment of their public exposure. But the best part was yet to come. The caterer wheeled out what appeared to be our wedding cake, beautifully decorated with white fondant and gold accents. But when they cut into it instead of traditional cake layers, it was revealed to be made entirely of cardboard with a sign inside that read, "Fake cake for fake people." The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. Melissa finally managed to get to her feet and started screaming at me. "You psychotic bitch! How dare you humiliate me like this?" "Humiliate you?" I asked calmly. "You humiliated yourself by sleeping with my fiancé and trying to steal my wedding. I just made sure everyone got to see who you really are." Ryan finally found his voice. "This is insane, Jessica. You're acting like a crazy person." "Really? I'm crazy for exposing the fact that you've been lying to me for months while planning to abandon me 3 weeks before our wedding? At that point, several of my male cousins approached Ryan and strongly suggested that he and Melissa leave immediately before things got unpleasant for them. As they were escorted out, Melissa turned back and screamed, "This isn't over! You'll pay for this!" "Actually," I called after her, "it is over, and you're the one who's going to pay." You want to know what it feels like to watch two people who thought they were so clever get completely destroyed by their own arrogance while surrounded by everyone they thought they were fooling? Let me know in the comments, because the aftermath of this wedding became the most talked about event in our social circle and had consequences that neither of them saw coming. After Melissa and Ryan left the vineyard in complete humiliation, the mood of the event completely transformed. What had started as a tense confrontation became an impromptu celebration of justice served and friendships strengthened. The catering staff, who had been in on the plan, brought out real food and champagne. The DJ switched to upbeat dance music, and my guests began to relax and enjoy what had become a divorce party before the marriage even happened. "That was the most epic thing I've ever witnessed," my sister said, giving me a huge hug. "I'm so proud of you for standing up for yourself like that." "Melissa and Ryan got exactly what they deserved," added my college roommate. "I can't believe they thought they could get away with something so awful." Throughout the evening, guest after guest came up to me to share their thoughts about what had happened. The consensus was overwhelming. Everyone was disgusted by Melissa and Ryan's behavior and impressed by how I had handled the situation. But the real consequences for Melissa and Ryan were just beginning. By the next morning, videos and photos of the wedding confrontation had been shared all over social media. Someone had live-streamed parts of my speech and Melissa's humiliating fall, and it quickly went viral in our extended social circle. Ryan's law firm, where he worked as a junior associate, saw the videos and decided that his behavior reflected poorly on their company values. They terminated his employment within a week, citing conduct unbecoming of a professional representative of the firm. Melissa worked at a high-end public relations company where reputation and trustworthiness were essential qualifications. When her coworkers and clients saw evidence of her deceptive and manipulative behavior, several major accounts requested different representation. She was fired within 2 weeks, but the social consequences were even more severe. Ryan's family was mortified by his behavior and the public humiliation he had brought on their family name. His mother called me personally to apologize for her son's actions and to express her disgust at what he had done. "I raised him to be better than this," she said tearfully. "What he did to you is unforgivable, and our family is ashamed of his choices." Melissa's family had a similar reaction. Her parents reached out to apologize and to let me know that they were cutting off financial support for her until she made serious changes in her character and behavior. The mutual friends who had known both Melissa and me for years universally sided with me. Melissa found herself completely ostracized from our social group, uninvited from events, and blocked on social media by dozens of people. Ryan faced similar social consequences. His college friends, work contacts, and even his gym buddies wanted nothing to do with someone who could behave so callously towards someone they claimed to love. Within a month, both Melissa and Ryan had essentially lost their entire support networks, their careers, and their reputations in our city. But there were also legal and financial consequences that they hadn't anticipated. Since Ryan and I had joint bank accounts and shared credit cards, I was able to document all the money he had spent on Melissa during their affair. Expensive dinners, hotel rooms, jewelry, and gifts that he had purchased with our shared funds while lying to me about his fidelity. My lawyer helped me sue Ryan for the misuse of our joint funds and for the emotional distress caused by his deception. Since I had clear evidence of his infidelity and financial betrayal, the case was straightforward. I was awarded not only the money he had spent on Melissa, but also additional damages for the emotional harm and the financial impact of having to cancel and rebook various wedding-related services. The total settlement was substantial enough that I was able to take a month off work to recover from the emotional trauma and plan my next steps. I also discovered that Ryan had been telling people that I was unstable and obsessed with work as justification for his affair. When these statements were contradicted by the evidence I had gathered and the testimony of our mutual friends, It became clear that he had been systematically lying about me to cover his tracks. This pattern of deception cost him credibility in legal proceedings and made it impossible for him to claim that he was the victim in our situation. Melissa faced her own legal challenges when several of the wedding vendors sued her for attempted fraud. Since she had tried to book services under false pretenses and had attempted to take over contracts that were legally in my name, she was liable for breach of contract and misrepresentation. The venue, photographer, and caterer all pursued legal action against her, resulting in thousands of dollars in legal fees and settlements that she couldn't afford after losing her job. 6 months after the wedding that never was, both Melissa and Ryan had left Chicago entirely. Ryan moved back to his hometown in Ohio to live with his parents while he looked for a new job and tried to rebuild his reputation. Melissa relocated to another state where she had distant relatives and where no one knew about her scandal. Their relationship, which they had claimed was true love worth destroying my life for, didn't survive the stress of their social and professional downfall. They broke up within 3 months of the wedding confrontation, blaming each other for the consequences of their actions. As for me, the experience taught me valuable lessons about trust, self-worth, and the importance of standing up for yourself when people try to take advantage of your kindness. I spent the month after the wedding in therapy, processing the betrayal and rebuilding my confidence. It was difficult to accept that someone I had trusted for 14 years had been capable of such calculated cruelty, but I also realized that discovering their true characters before marriage had saved me from a much worse fate. I threw myself back into my career with renewed energy and purpose. The promotion I had been working toward came through, along with a significant salary increase that more than compensated for the money I had lost on wedding expenses. I also made new friends through the experience. Several of the wedding guests reached out afterward to express their admiration for how I had handled the situation, and some of these connections developed into genuine friendships based on mutual respect and shared values. Most importantly, I learned to trust my instincts and to value myself enough to demand better treatment from the people in my life. A year later, I'm in a much better place emotionally and professionally. I've started dating again, but with much clearer boundaries and a better understanding of what I want in a partner. I still think about Melissa and Ryan sometimes, wondering if they learned anything from the consequences of their actions, or if they simply blame me for their downfall. But mostly, I'm grateful that their betrayal revealed their true characters before I made irreversible commitments to either of them. The wedding that was supposed to be the beginning of my new life, instead, became the beginning of a much better life than I could have had with people who were capable of such deception. What do you think about how I handled this situation? Did Melissa and Ryan get what they deserved for their betrayal? Or should I have handled things differently? Should someone who steals your fiancé and tries to take over your wedding face public humiliation? Or is private confrontation more appropriate? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories about wedding drama, friendship betrayal, and the importance of standing up for yourself when people try to take advantage of your trust. Remember, when people show you who they really are, believe them the first time. And never be afraid to expose the truth when someone tries to steal your life while pretending to be your friend. Thank you for listening to my story. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best outcomes, and I'm living proof that you can survive anything when you refuse to let people walk all over you.